Hello and welcome to your go-to Detroit Pistons podcast, The Pistons Pulse, co-hosted by me, Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops, a former D1 hooper and current teacher, husband, and father of 3 amazing kids.
And I'm Offseason O, Pistons beat writer for the Detroit Free Press.
Sorry, you shocked me. I was like, I don't know what to say. You stunned me. I'm so used to the intro being the same thing.
And we are always blessed to have Wes Davenport, our producer.
Now you're still on my lines. Wes is here with us producing the podcast. Guys, if you are not listening to him and Blake Silverman of the Pin Down podcast over on DBB, YouTube, podcast, wherever you guys need to be, they do a great job covering the Pistons. So there's plenty of Pistons to go around for you guys. Listen to us, listen to the Pin Down, other great ones out there as well. Today, Omari, Offseason O, we're going off the rails. We have no outline. There is nothing. Everybody knows our Google Doc and the outlines and my OCD. We are, what's up, Nathan? Nathan says, yo from Twitter. We appreciate you. And we are going completely off the rails with this. We are not going step-by-step outline, anything like that. So if you have questions, whether it's Pistons related, NBA related, basketball related, food related, lawn care related, I can answer for you. Offseason O cannot.
I can answer those too.
Not very well. You guys send it our way. This is the episode for you. A couple things before we get there. This is a fun episode. This is what this is intended for. We're just going to talk like a couple of friends hanging out on a Sunday afternoon. I'm sure Wes will be live in the private chat, dropping in with nuggets as well. We'll get all your guys' comments and questions. We are taking next weekend off. Omari is Offseason O. He's taking a week off. He deserves it. He needs it. There will not be a podcast next week. We've almost recorded 150 in a row, 2.5 years almost now, Omari, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah.
So we're taking a week off.
And it's Labor Day weekend too. It's
Labor Day
perfect,
weekend.
Which is like the perfect way to take off. Don't expect an episode from us Monday. Spend time for family. Spend time off work, hopefully. Don't even think about us next week. We'll be back the week after, whatever day that is.
Yeah, so we're taking a week off. We'll be back the next week, and we will get back. Like, if you tune into this and you're like, hey, I just want to listen to these guys talk Pistons. I don't want to hear them having fun and being normal people. I get it. Like, you don't want that from us. I understand. We'll be back 2 weeks from now, and we'll probably be talking lineups, Omari, or something like that. So I'm excited for this. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know how much Pistons we're talking today. I don't know what we're going to get into, but
yeah, we do have a couple of Pistons questions, so maybe we'll get to that eventually.
We'll get to it. Let's start off. What is Offseason O? Explain to our people what Offseason O is, Omari.
Yeah, it's just what I become like when I'm off, like, Offseason O. Like, it used to just be like the entire offseason, and then I'm like, I feel like Offseason O conveys like not working. So I just started doing it only like when I actually take time off. But I don't know. I think I just took time off and I was still in Memphis and I was just like, I don't know, Offseason O. And I don't know why it stuck, but it just did. Like, people started using Offseason O, and then I'm like, okay, I'm Offseason O now. Like, this is like, I self-branded myself like Kobe with Mamba. Like, I'm gonna have t-shirts, I'm gonna have hats. Like, we're gonna take this all the way.
I love it. What does Offseason O like to do? What are you able to do the next week when you are completely off from work? You're not podcasting, you're not writing. What can you get into? What do you like to get into that you maybe don't always have time for? Yeah,
it's really like the next 3-ish weeks, but it just sort of times out to where like we can record today for this week, and then like I'm on like Monday and Tuesday, like the weekend after, just we could record the pod. But I'll be in San Diego this week. I like to travel to cities that I would not go to for the NBA otherwise. So like last year I went to Montreal. The year before that I did Seattle. And then this year I did San Diego just because I've always heard great things about San Diego. And, I like food. I like beaches. I like to explore. It's got all that. So I'll be out there for a few days. Beyond that, like, I'm just a very chill guy. Like, I play some college football 25. Hop online on that. Like, I've been playing that pretty heavy the last few weeks. I'll get back to riding my bike because I kind of fell out of that habit, unfortunately. So I need to get some bike rides. And I've been picking up golf. So I'll be at the driving range, like getting my swing down. Just a lot of stuff, like just typical 30-year-old stuff, honestly. Like, I wish I had like some other cool, broad thing to do, but it's just golf, video games, riding my bike, and a little bit of travel for 3 weeks. So it'll be cool. I'm looking forward to it.
So you said San Diego. Have you been to San Diego before?
No.
Okay, so what are your, and did you say Montreal as well? Is that what you said?
So I went to Montreal last year.
Okay.
Before the Pistons, actually before I even knew the Pistons were going to play a preseason game there, so I ended up going twice. I'm like, a month. Yeah, Wes says San Diego's beautiful. There's a beach just filled with seals. I don't know if I've ever seen like a seal in real life outside of the zoo, so I'm definitely going to say what's up to the seals.
What is the city that when you go to as a beat writer, Omari, you're like, man, I really wish I could just kick it here for a few days without anything to do? Like what's the city you go to that you're like, the food, the culture, the vibe is awesome. I wish I didn't have to go cover a basketball game and write an article.
Yeah, honestly, like both San Francisco and LA, like I found out like California a lot. I like the vibe, I like the weather, I like being by the beach. So yeah, so that's always cool. Miami, like I would say Miami's probably one of the cities that's exactly what you expect it to be. Like, it looks like on TV, and my dad just hopped in.
Like it looks like it does in the movies. We just watched the 4th Bad Boys a couple nights ago, and I was like, is this really what Miami looks like? Because I feel like sometimes in the movie it's exaggerated a little bit.
Yeah, so LA is a city that looked different from what I expected. Like when I first went, like I was like, I got to go to Hollywood. Hollywood is like the least impressive place I've ever been to. Like if you ever want to go to LA and like Hollywood's on your list of like stuff to do, like don't go to Hollywood. Don't do that. Like there are better places. That was awful. So that was the city that pulled me the most. Like I like LA now, but I realized LA is so spread out. You basically have to know exactly what you want to do and like where you want to be, right? So I kind of have an idea of like what to do in LA now, so I would spend time there now. But first time I went, like I was downtown, like I was at Hollywood, like I was in all the spots that LA is not known for. So yeah, but beyond that, like, like cities with good food, like I always want to spend more time in. So like New Orleans, I've never been there outside of work. So it'd be cool to just go down there and just experience New Orleans for a certain amount of time. Those may be the main ones, just, the cities that are most known for their food and their culture and whatnot. Like a lot of NBA cities are cold. Like if it's a cold city, automatically it's just getting knocked down unless it's New York or Detroit. I have a strong bias against the rest of them. And Philly, I like Philly too. I give Philly that.
It's funny because as you're talking about this, I was thinking as you're getting your 1 week, it's not like you get a whole lot of time off from what you do for a job. I'm about to, like, I've started back into school. So like my schedule's crazy right now, actually, because I started teaching again. Last week was our first week of school. And then as you know, I still coach high school football. I don't coach high school basketball anymore because the season's just too crazy. But football season, basketball is a little bit slow right now. So I can afford to do that. And, I'm coming off, you can probably tell a little bit in my voice. I lost it just a little bit this week between, teaching 7th and 8th graders all day and then going to football practice. And, I might get a little bit worked up as a coach. I'm not quite as laid back and relaxed as I am in real life and on the pod. I tend to yell a little bit, but yeah, my life, my schedule's starting to get a little bit crazy right now with school starting back up. What have you looked at the schedule, Omari? Is there a trip that you're looking forward to, or the one you're like, oh man, like I got to do this in December? Was there? I don't know. I know that determines your life. Like I literally don't know the schedule. I haven't looked a single time because I don't care. It doesn't bother me. But my life isn't following this basketball team around to watch them play. So I'm assuming you've looked a little bit.
For sure. And once like Wes said, this is Chicago erasure, and I would not stand for it, Omari. Chicago is also in the exclusion list. I love Chicago, so I would not eliminate Chicago from that. Like I love going to Chicago. Wes gave me a thumbs up. Sorry about that, pal. Chicago is absolutely within that group. So it's funny, like a lot of times I'll like sort of like map out like my next 6 months of life. This time it was just like, I'm going to be off to like mid-September. So like, I'm probably not going to start booking travel until then anyway. So I mostly just looked at the one weekend that I knew I needed to be free because like I'm going to be in a wedding. And I was like, oh, they're home that weekend. So that works out pretty well. So that's literally like, it's a random weekend in November. That's the only weekend that I've mapped out as far as like my life. Like, okay, I could actually be like groomsman in this wedding without taking a day off, which, is always nice.
Groomsman, that's big time. Okay. So I'm glad you brought up the wedding. So let me ask you this. I had a teammate in college. It was our junior year. So I had just transferred in from JUCO. He was a junior. He had been there for 3 years. He had just become a starter for our team. One of my really good friends on the team. But our first game of the season, he missed because his sister was getting married on that day and that weekend. If you were in the same situation, what would you do?
Like the first game, but your sister's getting married?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to bet the sister's wedding, man. She'll hold that against you for the rest of her life. Like
no, she won't. So they posed this question to me. Okay. And I guarantee you I could call my sister right now and my sister's response would be, I would know not to get married during basketball season because Bryce would not be at my wedding.
Okay, well that's good. Like I do tell people, if you do anything during the NBA season, like there's like a 35% chance of me being there. So
Wes says no chance. First game starting. Sorry to my. Here's what's crazy. And listen, people are gonna like. I'm not gonna tell the rest of the story, but really good player. And obviously we played in the tournament that year, and it didn't end up being that big of a deal. But it was kind of funny because I'm like, I assume the answers to that would be all over the place, but I know for me, I was spoiled because my basketball journey, I guess, I was the baby of the family. It kind of was the centerpiece of what we were doing. My sister, I went to JUCO an hour away from where my sister was living at the time. She went to every JUCO game I played in, 60 plus games my freshman and sophomore year, and she traveled to every single one. She's 6 years older than me. So, I think it's just the way. I remember my wedding. I thought of this too, because next weekend, Omari, is a huge college football weekend. There's a ton of big games. And there's people getting married this coming Saturday, and their wedding's about to be ruined because of these games.
Yeah.
And I remember my best friend from high school, he's a big KU fan, and KU football was playing, and they were trying to watch the game right before the wedding. I was like, dude, KU sucks. Like, why do you care? Why is it? If it was the Chiefs, I would be like, okay, but I would have been smart enough not to get married the day the Chiefs were going to play.
And that's what's tough, because like fall, I feel like fall is like a great wedding season, just like weather wise and this and that. So it's like I kind of get it. Like on the other hand, like a lot of dudes are just occupied. A lot of women too are just occupied like on college football Saturday, and that's just the reality of it. So like I always tell people, I'm like, even like when I was in college and I was doing like more football stuff, I'm like, if it's during the fall or winter, like just know that like 85% of my weekends are occupied. And best case scenario, my team is no longer, like in it, right? Like they're not going bowl or whatever, and I'm start watching by like November or whatever. Derek Brown got to get Mr. Sankofa on the pod sometimes. I'm actually glad you said that, because I spent a whole weekend with my dad and brother up in the UP. My brother got his master's up at Michigan Tech.
Shout out your brother, man. Congrats.
Which is big time for him. We are in completely different fields. He's in ecology. He works with plants and fungi. He's very much an outdoors guy. Out to him too, because he just started watching basketball in like the last 3 or 4 years, and now he's like becoming more and more of an NBA fan. So it's just kind of funny because, like now we actually have that in common. But anyway, we drove 9 hours up to the UP Friday. Let's help him move his stuff out. Spend all day moving furniture and all that stuff. And then we actually drove back today. Like we left at like 6:30 in the morning, 6:45 in the morning, and actually got back to my apartment. We're recording this at 5:49 p.m. Sunday. Like I got back like to my apartment literally 4:45. Like I walked into my apartment, it's 4:45. So I've been home for like an hour. But I don't know if we have any Yoopers who listen to the pod, but if so, the UP is beautiful. I want to what? There one day. Yoopers.
What's a Yooper?
Man, okay. This is fun.
Hold on real quick before you we got Ashton here. Ashton, what's up? Like, we're not talking a whole lot of Pistons today, Ashton. We're just having a fun episode, just kicking it, talking. But we
That's
appreciate
what he's here for, man. That's what he's here for.
Nah, he's here for it. Okay,
but, so what is a Yooper? This is a geography like Michigan thing. So if you live in the Upper Peninsula, we call it the UP, and if you live in the UP, you are called a Yooper. So Yooper. That's a nickname for people who live in the UP.
Yooper. Interesting.
Tom Izzo is a Yooper. He's from Iron Mountain, Michigan, and if he ever get him talking about the UP, he'll like.
Wes says there's a special type of snow shovel called a Yooper scooper.
Yeah, but like my brother talks about UP snow. It's just like a whole different type of snow up there. Like man, they're like I feel like they're more in Canada than like cities in Canada. Like he's so far north that he's like I could get to Philadelphia faster than I could get to Houghton, Michigan. That's where Michigan Tech is, and it's like
is that true?
Yes, like it's like it takes 9 hours to get up there. It takes 4 hours to get to the Mackinac Bridge, which connects the Lower Peninsula to the Upper Peninsula. And then that's like a 4.5 hour drive once you get to the UP, just because you don't have any proper highways. It's just, it's very rural, like, very forested. You only have so many roads, right? So it just takes a little bit longer to get through it. So, you're driving through, lakes, like you're right off, I think, Lake Superior for like half the drive. Like it's beautiful up there. It doesn't even look like Michigan. It's like, it's like you're like 40 years in the past or something. Like it's so nice. Like I want to, like I am an honorary Yooper. Like I feel like me and my dad, my brother, family, like we are now honorary Yoopers, and I'm gonna go up there every summer and just like I want to own a cabin up there. Like
so what's the industry up there? Like up there, what's the industry? What are most people doing? Like I assume there's
like a lot of there's a lot of people involved, I would assume, and like what my brother's doing, like ecology and stuff like that. Just because of the location. Wes says sparse gas stations too. Had to plan it out. Yeah, we go to the same gas station almost every time, just because like there's like two For the first 2.5 hours of that drive, you maybe pass by 2 or 3 gas stations.
Wait, why does YouTube users say that Yoopers call people that aren't Yoopers trolls?
Because trolls live under the bridge.
Oh my gosh.
You did. You're getting like a crash course in Michigan culture. Like, this is amazing.
I mean, I wish I could give you some Kansas culture, but there's nothing. Like, I don't got anything. Like, this
There's got to be something.
No. Like, I mean, have you watched the new Twisters movie?
No,
there you go.
Seen that,
Watch the new Twisters movie and you're all in. Like, you got everything you need to know. The only thing that sounds familiar here is the roads and the scarcity of a gas station. I mean, I've had to go 15, 20 miles in the middle of the night with my fingers crossed that I was going to make it to the next town, or at the next town, the gas station was actually going to be open that time of night. So, hey guys, everybody, there's some really fun Wizard of Oz. There you go. That's another good one. There are some really good questions in the chat. We will get to them. We just don't want to, dive into it too quick, but continue to throw those in there. We got some actual Piston ones. We have some other ones. Hey, I know
Steve Mariucci is from the UP too. Yeah,
okay.
Steve Mariucci and Izzo are friends because they grew up in the UP together. So,
okay.
There you go. Fun fact.
All right, let's go to a quick break here, O. And then when we come back, let's start with our favorite moments from the pod that we didn't get to last episode. I'm sure that'll get us down all sorts of roads and all of that. And again, we got the chat, guys. We'll hit those as well. But let's get into our favorite moments from the pod after this short break.
All right, cool. We're going to open with our favorite moments from the pod here, just because I know some of the topics we're going to riff about kind of go off of these anyway. One thing I noticed is that, like, we'll just make a random joke and it becomes a running joke for whatever reason, but then I can never remember how it became a running joke to begin with. Like, I don't know how long we've been talking about lawn care. Has it been like 2 weeks? Has it been 2 months? Like, I don't even know how that became an initial topic,
No, I don't know either. And here's the thing that I get confused about too. Peek behind the curtain. We spend a lot of time talking right before we record and after we record. And
like,
a lot
we'll be
of times,
on like StreamYard for like an hour and 45 minutes sometimes.
Especially when we have guests on, like our guy Keith Smith. Like, Keith will stay and talk for us for like 30 minutes if he has time to do so.
Yeah.
So sometimes that stuff runs together, and I don't remember what we talk about on the pod and what we don't. But yeah, I don't remember that. Also, you had a really good joke in the last couple months, and I kept trying to remember what it was.
Was that with Keith?
Yeah, the one with Keith. Like, it was
the we were talking, like, it was something.
Oh, it was something about the top 5. It was something about getting a top 5 pick, right? Or
it was just like, like they're gonna get. It was something along the lines like they're gonna get the 5th pick or whatever.
Yeah,
but that was a good one. We should have did like a compilation of like my best jokes in here.
I mean, the thing, it would be fun, but it would just cause a lot of manpower. Like, that would be a lot on Robin's plate to have to go back through all the episodes and pick out his favorite jokes.
Yeah,
I feel like you warmed up. I feel like you warmed up to the lawn care though.
Define warmed up.
Like, you were at least appreciating what Wes and I put out on Twitter yesterday.
The lawns look very good. Like, I'll give you that.
Thank
like,
you.
They are very well manicured, very green lawns. Like, if my lawn looked like that, then I would be like, yeah, like I'm a lawn guy because clearly I've got gifted hands when it comes to the mower and the edger and all this other stuff. Like, you and Wes posted lawns back to back yesterday, and I'm just like, this is good lawnage. Like, I can't say anything bad about it. Like, I know a good lawn when I see it. Like, I can't say a good lawn is a bad lawn. Like, I can't hate on a good lawn. I'm just personally not, like, I'm not invested in that type of deal. Personally.
I was. Oh, Omari said mines were big. Okay, back in the UP. Okay,
in the UP, yeah. And
right,
it was like mines, like, a lot of mining. Like, I think Iron Mountain was a mining town. So, like Izzo jokes, if he didn't get into coaching, he probably would have been a miner, which is funny.
Okay. Nick Lake on Twitter said, could you create an all-time Pistons team, 9-man rotation that would go to 7 games against any team of 9 current players?
That's a good question. They actually asked me that for my mailbag, and it didn't make it in. So that's a good one to tackle on here.
Let's not do it this episode though. Let's make a segment, or, I mean, I think that could almost last 2 segments or something.
Sure.
So let's save that for after this, but that's a great call, Nick Lake. Wes, let's put that in the archives somewhere, and we'll try to get to that here in the off season at some point. So really good one there. I mean, I think what our favorite thing has to be the live show, right? Like, that's our all-time best moment. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, the live show. Yeah, because I was like, but you start doing a pod. I don't know if you ever imagined that you'll do something like that, right? Like, we record all of our episodes from the comfort of like our homes. So to actually do like a live show, like, I had never done anything like that, so that was like outside of my comfort zone. Like it's probably outside of your comfort zone to an extent. Although you're a coach, so you're probably used to being in
No,
front
no,
of
no,
people.
no, no. I was freaking out.
Okay.
Like that. I'm glad. So that we did that the first night of me and Randy's trip.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we did it the first night because I was stressing the whole time. I was terrified nobody was going to show up. And then it got worse when I got there and saw how much Freep had done to put it together, how much work they had put in. And I was like, this is really going to suck if nobody shows up. Because I walked upstairs at Hopcat and I was like, oh, this is like the real deal, Omari. And they had like prizes and all sorts of
stuff.
Like
they went all the way. And I'm like, man, this is going to be embarrassing if we have like 8 people, you know?
8
like,
people would not be good. And so it went really, really, I wasn't worried about the actual content. We've done so many of these episodes at this point that, you know, it's kind of second nature, but I was just scared that nobody was going to show up and it was going to be a complete flop, but it ended up being really, really cool.
No, that's definitely a top moment.
Omari, you are coming on next time whenever we do that topic we just brought up there.
Yeah, we're gonna have to bring you on for sure to do like the 9-man rosters because you're gonna you know bring up players from like you know the Bad Boys era and whatnot. Yeah, we can probably do that when we come back. Like
let's do that sometime when we come back.
Yeah,
Wes said he was also nervous. He wasn't nervous until we walked upstairs. So I believe Wes came to the hotel where Randy and I were staying. We went together and Wes had been like, Bryce, it'll be fine. It's going to be cool. Like, you're good. And then I remember we walked upstairs together and I could tell the look on Wes's face that all of a sudden it got real for him too. And that did not help my anxiety at all. So YouTube user asked how many people. Well, I don't think we probably hit 50, 40 or something, maybe.
Like a little bit more than that. Like I would say there was probably like 12 or 14 tables and a couple booths. And like every table had at least like 4 people. So I would guess maybe around 60, 65, 70. Like,
Wes, you think we got 50? Like, in complete transparency, like there was, you know, people from the Free Press were there. My wife was there, you know, stuff like that. But there were also just fans, you know, some that we had interacted with on Twitter, some that we hadn't, stuff like that. So, Wes says probably around 50 or 60. So.
Yeah, about standing room only. Yeah, like it was like the room was full. Like the room.
And the cool thing was like the Free Press like put a tab out and people were able to get some free drinks and you know and all of that. And if I can
we chopped it up a bit after. It was the same night as a national championship game too.
That's right. Like
which is also a reason why we were nervous. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a weird schedule and it rained. Remember?
And it rained. The weather was awful.
Through.
Yeah.
And it was during the middle of the week. It was a Monday. And I think if we went back. I think that's what we talked about was like doing it in an afternoon because I think it probably was hard for people to get there if they had kids and stuff like that. I mean, we're a family show, so you could bring your 15-year-old son or 12-year-old daughter or whatever if it wouldn't have been at 8:00 at night. So I think we were really nervous because the national championship, the rain, the middle of the week, and that was all my fault because that's whenever I was able to make it out. But I remember.
Yeah, it was just timed out that way, you know.
You know. No, that was a lot of fun. It was scary, but it was worth it. And then I will always say this. I've enjoyed every trip to Detroit we've made. I've always had a blast. When Rainey's came with me, she's had a blast. We've went out and sightsee a little bit. You hook us up with some restaurants that we go and check out. It's always, and then the games are awesome. Of course, the media food is the best in the NBA. So
I also think Detroit could be a very welcoming city. Like people typically want people to come away with a good impression of Detroit. So, you know, we have a way of putting on our best face when somebody's from out of town. Like, yeah, we're going to go and have a blast, you know, like we're going to do this, that, and the other.
What's next? I mean, food takes has to be our next thing that we're kind of known for. That's like taken over. I think we got into it a little bit. Yeah, the Piston season was over by that point. I feel like we figured out it was the chips and sandwich. I don't know who originally asked us the question, but that's where the food stuff started.
Yeah, and then we had Lads on. I think we just asked him, and then it just completely went off the rails for like the last 20 minutes because we started talking, like we just started debating like all these restaurants. And we also found out that you didn't live within like 100 miles of like a Jimmy John's or something like that.
Yeah.
Which was like,
it's a trip. I mean, there's not a real fast food other than Subway in the town I live. I have to drive 30 miles to get to McDonald's.
So what's like the closest fast food place?
I mean, other than Subway, there's a Subway here. I could get to Subway in 2 minutes. If I wanted to get to McDonald's or Taco Bell or name whatever fast food restaurant, it's 30 minutes.
So do your kids ever like beg for fast food?
So So our oldest son, Ro, loves Subway. So we get Subway. My wife, so our daughter loves McDonald's, but my wife has convinced her that she's allergic to McDonald's, that my wife is. So if my daughter requests McDonald's and we don't want to get it, we just lie to her and tell her that Ranny doesn't have her medicine to keep her from being allergic to McDonald's. And as an 8-year-old, she still believes that my wife is allergic to McDonald's and we can't go there if Ranny doesn't have her medicine for it.
Man, that's nice. That's nice. My parents just would have been like, we're just not, no. We have food in the fridge. So no, we're not driving 30 miles from McDonald's. So this would have been very clear, just like, no. Like, and if you're upset about it, oh well. So I like that you guys like put it very gently to her, like, no, we're not going to McDonald's. Like, you spare her feelings.
Yeah, I can't wait to see her reaction when she figures it out that that's not a thing.
She could have been listening like to old episodes of the pod when she's like 16. No. Like, wow.
I doubt it.
You lied to me for 8 years of my life.
My end of the season tradition whenever I was still coaching basketball is I would always drive to Taco Bell at the night, whatever night it was that we lost. Obviously it was tough and a tough night. I love Taco Bell as fast food. So that was always my tradition. Like we would play the game. We ended up losing in last game of the year. I would drive to Taco Bell and get that. We used to live further. So we used to live in my hometown, which is 30 miles further away. So it would be like an hour to get to McDonald's or Taco Bell or Walmart or whatever. But
Wes says you're picky, but like Taco Bell. Before
I'm not picky. How am I picky?
Question marks.
Hold on. Not wanting to put chips on a sandwich is not picky. How is that picky?
I don't think that's what he's talking about.
What am I picky about? I don't not eat mac and cheese. I just don't need somebody to put all of this extravagant stuff on it. I'll eat it out of the box. I mean, not literally out of the box, but you know what I mean.
What do you prefer out of the box to the extravagant stuff?
I'm fine with it. Oh, Mark, my guy. Here's my guy, Mark Murray. He showed up. Was it last episode, I think, from Pratt? Five Guys. Have you had Five Guys before?
Man, Five Guys is phenomenal. I love Five Guys. Yeah. Yeah, I love Five Guys.
Thank you, Maddie. I am particular. That is a great, that's a fair term. I will take that. I had never had Chipotle or Five Guys or anything like that.
You're not missing anything with Chipotle.
Huh?
You're not missing anything with Chipotle.
Stop. Chipotle is amazing.
It's good, but like I wouldn't go out of my way for it, you know.
I had never had it till I went to school in DC. So I was 20 years old the first time I had Chipotle.
I was like 16 or 17 the first time I had it. Honestly, like
I think it's awesome.
It's good. I mean, it's good. I would just never. Okay, I have a beef with.
Hold on. Not letting my food touch is not being picky. That's like OCD. That's
picky adjacent. That's picky adjacent. Not all picky eaters don't let their food touch, but all people who don't let their food touch are picky.
Say that again.
I said it wrong. I would say most people who don't like their food touching are picky. Like I would say that there's a correlation.
There's no correlation.
There's a correlation.
I just
for sure.
want stuff to be in order.
It's a correlation for sure.
So here's what my students do to me. So like on my desk, I have, a stapler and tape and stuff like that. When they walk in the class and I'm still in the hallway, they'll go to my desk and just move stuff around so they can watch me move it back into the right spot before I start teaching, because I want everything in the right spot. That has nothing to do with food, but that's how it is with my food touching or not. Did you take me to a Lebanese place or no? What did you take me and Randy to?
We've been to Baobab Fair, which is like East African food. They have been pretty highly rated, like got notoriety here and there. Man, like I feel like we have been to a Mediterranean spot, or I at least had a Mediterranean spot in the works.
I don't think with us.
Maybe not. But we've been to a few different spots.
The first time we came out, we kept it pretty, like we didn't go too crazy. The one you just mentioned was the one that we went to for lunch that day. It was really, really good.
Yeah.
So,
and I think we probably got pizza at some point.
Yeah. I know we had pizza in the hotel after one of the games. That was with Wes and his wife.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you came or not.
That was some type of Detroit style because we recorded the pod there after. That was some type of Detroit style.
Oh, in the hotel. Yeah.
But Lebanese food is like, next time you come, we're definitely going to get some Lebanese food because like we have Detroit has the biggest Middle Eastern population in the country, like Dearborn. And
so that's out and so I think we were at Dearborn. We went to Dearborn that's the Ford factory and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So Randy and I went out there to like tour that and everything, but I don't think we ate well. I think when we did that on the way back, we hit up a Mexican food restaurant that you had recommended. That was good.
Oh, Wes
Yeah.
said it was Buddies and I didn't like it. Buddies used to be great and it is just, Buddies is not good now. Like the last 5 times I've had Buddies, I have been extremely underwhelmed. And that used to be like the go-to Detroit style pizza spot, like growing up. Like Buddies was the Detroit style pizza. Like it wasn't as trendy as it is now. Like we called it square pizza and you went to Buddies or you went to Shields or it was a spot out in the suburbs, Louis, like Jets, which is the chain, but like Buddies used to be like the spot, and I don't know what happened, but they're everywhere now, and like it's like not nearly as good as it used to be. Wes said it's no Grandma Bob's. I took Wes and his pops to Grandma Bob's, and Grandma Bob's is a great pizza spot. It's better than Buddies to be right now, for sure.
What is chicken shawarma sandwich?
Have you seen the Avengers?
Yeah.
They go get shawarma at the end of it. Tony Stark and Happy and the rest of them, they're like, you want to go get shawarma? Because they're in New York, and they have shawarma everywhere in New York.
No.
Oh, that was the end thing. But anyway, it's just like a chicken. It is a form of a chicken wrap. It usually has like, season and then like their style. So it's really garlicky. Usually have a garlic sauce in it, which, man, what's that garlic sauce called? Anyway, it is delicious. Like I could eat like shawarma like every single day. Toom, like Toum, like that's what they call their garlic sauce. They'll put like lettuce, tomato, pickles in it. It's delicious.
You know what I don't like? So when I was a junior in college, we made it to the NCAA tournament. No, it was my senior year. My junior year, we went to Birmingham and played Tennessee. My senior year, we played Nova in Philly, first round. We go up there, and one of my teammates is from Philly, so they want us to treat us all to like original Philly cheesesteaks.
Yeah.
I was so underwhelmed. I almost cursed. I told you this was about to happen. They put Cheese Whiz on my Philly cheesesteak.
So you're not a Cheese Whiz guy?
No. What? I was like...
But you like box mac and cheese, though. I like box mac and cheese, too. I'm not saying you shouldn't like it, but what is the difference between the powdered cheese and Cheese Whiz?
I don't know. Like, people always ask me, like, why do you not like this or that? I don't know. It's just, like, I don't control my taste buds. They just...
Because you're particular.
Dax Hoops, that's how it's made. I know that's how it's made. I was so disappointed. I did not realize. It's like, really,
some would do it with like you could get like provolone or American cheese,
which is how.
Yeah,
no, exactly. I love provolone, American, whatever. I would have tried anything. It just was mind blowing to me that they put Cheese Whiz on this famous Philly cheesesteak that's, world renowned, and they're spreading Cheese Whiz on top.
No decorum, just Cheese Whiz. Like you thought they were gonna come in with like some real, like laid cheese on top, place it on top, and melts all that.
Yeah, like
which I feel like that's delicious for sure.
I mean, is that fair? Like
it's fair. Like Cheese Whiz is not like I've never consumed Cheese Whiz outside of the context of a Philly cheesesteak. Not even like a huge like Philly cheesesteak guy. Like I like them, but like I'm not gonna go get a cheesesteak every time I go to Philly. Like there's like a lot of good food in Philly that's not cheesesteaks. So
Dax Hoop says, but that Taco Bell nacho cheese. Listen, man, like when you go to Taco Bell, you know what you're getting into, but it is what it is. Wes says Cheese Whiz is gross. Finally, we agree on something. Let's see, a couple other things. Vegas Summer League is truly a tradition at this point. This is 4 years in a row.
Yeah,
that we've
22, 23, 24. Yep.
I mean, so the very first year I went, the first year of Motor City Hoops podcast, when I was doing it solo, Wes, had you come on at that point yet? Yeah, you were on. So Wes was with me. If people don't know that story, I was about to shut Motor City Hoops down. I didn't create Motor City Hoops. My guy Vlad did. Mm-hmm. And we went for like 6 months. He was still playing professionally. He got out. And I had no idea what I was going to do with it. And eventually kept
Somebody
going.
actually asked you about that. Like, how'd you become a Pistons fan? And this is basically the story here.
Yeah. So I was not a Pistons fan growing up. I was honestly like, if my basketball team, quote unquote, was Kansas, University of Kansas, KU, college basketball. I watched the NBA. I grew up. Allen Iverson was my favorite player growing up, all of that. So coming out of COVID, December 2020, former teammate of mine starts Motor City Hoops, asked me to come on. I say yes. We go for like 6 months and like we're legit getting maybe 100 listeners, downloads, whatever. He decides to leave and then I was left with it. And I was like, what am I going to do? Do I keep going or do I not? And I decided to reach out to some guests. Honestly, at that time, like James was one of the first ones. Rod, I recorded with Rod Beard. Rod episode, the audio didn't work right, and he was gracious enough to re-record the whole thing with me. You came on at Summer League, but Wes, I had reached out, and then I reached back out to him as like, hey, I need somebody to help me with this stuff. and Wes jumped on board and he's been rocking with me ever since. And then I sent you a random message. So Vegas would have been August that year. It would have been August that year.
Because I was coming out the pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah. The schedule was a little weird. And I think I sent you a message in October and I was like, hey, any chance you want to, come on the pod and be a co-host?
And it was funny because in the back of my mind, I'd already been kind of thinking like, I feel like he would like, that would be a good duo. Because like when I came on your show, I'm like, this is easily like one of the most organized pods I've ever been on. Like you came in, you had the outline, and you was very thorough. And like I do, I do a variety of pods, obviously, like a lot of people in the podcast game too. And I was still saying that was, one of the best organized ones I've done. So I came away like, okay, like that's a really good pod. So he reached out. I'm like, yeah, this is exactly the type of person I want to do a Pistons podcast with, because I'd already done it. And I remember coming away like, yeah, like this dude's got it. Like this is a great pod. So
think how far we've come, because Wes, the outlines used to be crazy detailed, and now we're doing in a whole episode, and we didn't even create one.
Yeah,
but Wes
they did used to be like a couple pages,
even more than what we do now. Like they were super, super detailed. But Wes and I talk all the time about how far we've come. I mean, we did a lot of episodes where we get like 100 downloads, like legit. And right now, I assume we have more than 100 people watching live. I mean, I know the number's crazy, but it Twitter kind of messes with that a little bit. So I was listening to Motor City Hoops, Bryce. Made sure to comment on all your DBB posts, man. Thank you so much for that. That was, I owe a lot to DBB as well. Them giving me that platform to write and do all of that was crazy. So
they've always had a lot of good guys over there too. Like even before I started covering the league, like I've probably been reading DBB since like high school, honestly, like early high school. So, that dates all the way back to like 2010 or 11 or whatever.
Yeah. So Wes says when we had a new guest each week, it was so hard to predict where the conversation was going to go. So we had to prep everything we could think of. Yeah. So back then it was just me. And so we had a guest every single episode. So that was stressful too, was making sure we could get people on and all of that. We had the Olympic runner from Michigan. I'll have to look up his name, Nick something. We had him on. It was cool. Let's go to break, Omari. We got some questions. Let's get into those and we can finish things off. We'll get into that right after this.
All right, we're back with segment 3. We have a handful of questions. Some of these are Pistons related, some of these aren't. So honestly, we could probably just tackle them in order with the last.
Here's what's amazing. You just left you just came back, or no, you left the break with the no doubt. So that was one final thing.
Oh yeah,
is you left your no doubt and my at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's funny. Hey. It's funny. Like it's like how people. I feel like everybody. Because I do this in other pods sometimes. Everybody has something they fall back over. They're like gathering their thoughts. So that's like my no doubt. My no doubt is like, I need 2 seconds to stall to like gather my thoughts. That's pretty much what that is.
YouTube user says, Bryce is an OCD and very organized and does another pod that regularly starts 45 minutes to an hour late. Not Bryce's fault, but funny. YouTube user, you have no idea. And this is a real strain on my marriage some nights, let alone Raleigh, the 8-year-old daughter I talked about earlier. She does not like my other co-hosts on the other podcast. They have a real beef because she'll go, I gotta go record a pod. She goes, who's it with? And if I say Sam, she gives the biggest eye roll you could ever imagine from an 8-year-old girl. She gets so mad.
Man, we have to delve into the inter-family dynamics here that happens behind the scenes with all these pods you do.
Oh man, yeah, it's something. So let's just go in order. So Derek said, do you think Trajan wasn't that aggressive this offseason because if the Pistons make the playoffs and we lose our first round pick to the Knicks, and Trajan wants to get in this 2025 loaded draft?
Yeah, honestly, I just think, Trajan came in and he is a first-time president with a roster that he is acclimating himself with. And I think a lot of it was just supporting what's already here. And then next offseason, you kind of figure out, how you chart from there, like where you at schedule-wise. This is a team that won 14 games. So I just think he came in and thought, I'm not going to try to fortify a 14-win team to make a playoff run. Like that's not, that's probably not going to be that sustainable when you have all this cap space you have to spend. So I think it really was just first-time GM or first-time president. Team just won 14 games and you still got to get to know these guys. So you probably don't want to go and get a Zach LaVine or, that type of investment. We don't even know this roster yet. Like, I think it was just more so him getting acclimated.
I think I agree. Like, I think it and I agree with it the more I had thought about it, where like I would assume he wants to see what these guys are, make his own thoughts and opinions and analysis with a different coach and all of that. Just for reference, the Pistons pick is top 13 protected this year. In 2026, that goes to top 11. And then in 2027, it's top 9. And if for some reason it hasn't conveyed by then, I believe it turns into 2 second-round picks.
Because the other thing, too, is a lot of those trades that were potentially available this summer will still be there in February.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily need to do it.
When he has more of his own firsthand data on a Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren. I mean, I don't think Asar is going anywhere either way just in year 2. But Isaiah Stewart, Marcus Sasser, stuff like that.
Yeah, like all those guys.
Derek also asked, hey, Bryce, other than Cooper Flagg, who is the best fit in this 2025 draft class for the Pistons? So, I mean, in the top 5, I guess you would throw, like you would say, Traore and Dylan Harper aren't as good of fits. They're a little bit more on-ball guys. VJ Edgecombe depends a little bit on where Jaden Ivey lands, but I think VJ Edgecombe's a good fit, and then Ace Bailey. Like, those would be the 2 names in the top 5. If for some reason they fall lower, and I shouldn't say fall, but like if they're pretty good and they end up towards the later top 10 or something like that, Liam McNeely is an interesting name just as a wing floor spacer that actually does more than just shoot the ball. He's going to be a freshman at Connecticut from Montverde. And then Common Malawach is a kid that will play for Duke this year. He played in the Olympics a little bit for the South Sudan. He's a guy that could potentially space the floor as a big guy. And depending on where Jalen Duren's season goes, those are just some names that aren't just those top 5 guys.
No doubt. I don't have anything to add about next year's draft at this point. I know these guys are good. I've watched them here and there, but Bryce is probably one of the best people to talk to this early in the process as far as that stuff. The Pistons very much dictate my my draft coverage outside of the college basketball I watch, of course. But
so I have a Google sheet that has 200 names on it already. And I would say 75% of those names have some sort of scout, whether it's a incoming freshman or some guys I honestly, scouted last year as well. But
I will say, we have a draft like this where like the top 5 guys I would have went number 1 in this last draft, which means they all are seen as having, like star floors on some level. Does fit really factor in at this point?
Sure.
And how much of that depends on what Cade does next season?
So that's the thing is like, why are you drafting number 1 or 2 or 3 again? I mean, it would be 2 or 3, right? Because Cooper Flagg's probably going to be the number 1 pick unless something crazy happens. So why are you drafting number 3? Is it because you beat the lottery odds and jumped? Or it's because this season was an epic failure? Was that due to injury? Was it due because guys weren't as good as we thought? Whatever. And if it's because guys don't progress and aren't what we think, then you are just taking best player available.
Yeah. And I also think, just going back to that initial question, but, I think you could look at the East too and see very firm playoff teams, right? Like I think that top 8 is pretty firm. So it's like, do you really want to invest in like the 9th or 10th seed? Probably not, right? You want to look into it. You don't want to plan for them. So Mohammed, is the noise regarding Okoro real? His position doesn't seem to be a need right now. So I imagine someone we like is on the move. I wouldn't really, assume anything like that. As far as that, I think the Pistons wing room is already pretty full. I'm curious to see how that Okoro situation plays out. It absolutely could be a situation where he just takes the qualifying offer, with Cleveland and goes back. Like some of that noise is just the fact that JB was in Cleveland. Now he's here and Okoro played his best basketball under JB. And I do think Okoro, especially if he shoots like he did last season, then, that's a guy you could use. But profile-wise, he's just not that different from Asar. I think as far as what they were coming into the league, like I don't know if Okoro fits that roster in that sense just because we have so many other wings who need those minutes.
Well, and I think it would depend on the money and the contract and all of that as well. Cleveland's a very interesting team right now because they only have 12 roster spots filled and 1 two-way with Imani Bates. So they have a lot of spots that they can still fill between the 15-man roster and then their 2 ways as well. YouTube user says we are drafting 1 with 0.5% odds. I love it.
That's the spirit.
We talked about that a little bit on the last one. Dax Hoops says, how big of a positive impact is Tim Hardaway Jr. and Beasley versus Bogey and Burks? I feel like the difference here, Omari, is these 2 guys are like very much off the ball floor spacers in gravity, where Bogey and even Burks to an extent were a little bit more on the ball. So you are definitely going to need guys to play on the ball, whether it's Jaden Ivey, Marcus Sasser, Asar, whoever you believe in as a Pistons fan. Beasley especially is just an off the ball floor spacer. Tim Hardaway Jr., Now, he maybe do a little bit more, but I think that would be my biggest difference. I don't know that you're getting a whole lot more defense there, but I mean, you're getting that more off the ball floor spacing and gravity compared to some more on ball usage from Bogey and Burks.
Yeah, like I don't know if the difference between like both pairs is like a dramatic difference, right? And I also say that like these guys are at different points in their career to an extent too. So,
That's true too. That's true. Yeah.
So there's a few differences, but I would say like I think Keith made that point too last week is that TH Jr. and Beasley are more off ball guys, whereas Bogey and Burks are going to shoot themselves into rhythm a little bit more, which on this team I think was mostly fine just because nobody else was really going to take those shots. But at this stage, you have guys like THJ and Beasley who know exactly what their role is, and that's just to space the floor for Cade, right? And, I do think that, especially with THJ, where I think he's only like a 36% like career shooter.
It's just the volume.
But the volume, like, I actually wrote this in my mailbag tomorrow, but I think he was 22nd in volume last season. And that's just, threes, like 3-point attempts per game, not normalized per 100 or anything. He was 22nd. And I think the Pistons had nobody in the top 70 that they finished the roster with. I think Cade was like their highest ranked volume shooter last season. He was like 73rd or something. So just having a guy that is in that tier of volume shooter is just going to make a dramatic difference. And I think he's higher volume than both Burks and Bogey as far as that. So that's just a very like unique archetype that this team just didn't have last season.
Yeah, so I don't think it's necessarily like positive. It's just a different type of impact of the floor spacing and then allowing, again, some of those other guys to play with ball in hand. The other thing is Tim Hardaway Jr. is 32, Beasley's at 27, Bojan is 35, and Burks is 33. So both of those guys are older than Tim Hardaway Jr. And I talked about this on my Substack and made the point of Tobias Harris, Beasley, and Tim Hardaway Jr. all have averaged almost 70 games played over their last 5 seasons. So just that availability, and that's what Michael brings up. Burks also had available issues, couldn't play many minutes. Beasley and THJ are both able to play 30 plus minutes if needed. And then YouTube user brings it up, like the dramatic difference comes from Ivy and Duren on defense. I'd even throw Cade into that, making a jump defensively. That's where it's going to come from. But yeah, I think they make a little more sense just in terms of the way they impact the game, especially on the offensive end, combined with the availability. Let's get to some fun ones here. Brendan Cruz says, Bryce, how much you follow football versus basketball being a football coach? So football wise, I mean, I am a religious Kansas City Chiefs follower. I watch every snap. I watched every snap of the preseason. Normally I have to record the games because my Sundays are kind of crazy between recording podcasts and we have our football prep meeting for the week. So lots of times I'll record the Chiefs game and then I'll watch it later. But I don't watch as much as I used to in terms of college football. I turned games on yesterday and watched. Who was it? Georgia Tech had the walk-off field goal in that game against Florida State, but not as religiously as I used to. I wish I could more, but honestly, like NBA starts soon. I think we're 2 months away. So, exhibition preseason games are even sooner. And then NBL games have already started. There's already preseason NBL games. So their season will start. Like there's draft stuff starts very, very soon. So it's just hard to keep up with that.
So, Muhammad, is basketball or football the number one sport in the U.S.?
Football,
NFL,
right?
NFL is like in its own tier, and then probably basketball after that. But like, America's weird because like the NFL has no traction anywhere else, but here it absolutely reigns supreme. The Super Bowl is almost a holiday, so it definitely is the superior sport here.
I mean, it legit comes up in our contract conversations at school. People want Super Bowl Monday off. They want the night. Now, it's made a lot more sense, right? Because the Chiefs have been playing in it also, but just in general, everybody has a Super Bowl Sunday party, no matter who's playing in it. And so people want that Monday off. But
going back to that schedule question earlier, I didn't check this time, but I will also typically look and see where I am during the Super Bowl in the middle of the season. I think last year we were in Toronto, which was funny because it's like I've never, we're watching the Super Bowl in Canada. Like, I don't know, like I thought that was hilarious, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's football is king. I think fantasy football helps that. It's so much easier to play fantasy football than I think any other fantasy sport, basketball,
for sure.
baseball.
I don't even like fantasy basketball because it's just, you have to look at it every single day. In football, I think fantasy football really gets a lot of people into the leagues as a whole too, which is, like when I started doing it in 9th grade, that was when I kind of went from like, I just watched the Lions to like, let's see what Des Bryant is doing, or like, let's see what the whatever team, honestly. But I love fantasy football is my thing for sure. Like I get
YouTube
obsessed.
says football so big, it's NFL and college football second. I mean, I think the thing with I think college football is a little more regional. Like, I mean, but I still like I'm excited for next Saturday, and all of those games. So
I would say the average NFL team is probably more popular than the average college football team. But when you get to like Michigan and Bama and stuff, that's probably number one, period.
Yeah. Like, who's more popular? Are Michigan State more popular than the Lions?
Actually, Lions are, you know what? Actually, metrics wise,
what if they were
I think
good?
Lions are typically number one.
When they're good. When Michigan State are good, is the popularity more than Detroit Lions?
I've always known the Lions to be number one here. Actually, now that I think about it, I would say this past season, I would have to go and look since Michigan won the national championship, like how much that influenced it. Like I would say they were probably 1A or 1B in that instance. But the baseline for Lions is just absurd. Like typically when you look at the metrics, you see that the Lions, it could be any Lions story, but those are always going to be a little bit better than everything else.
Yeah. All right. So Derek Brown has a really fun one. Would you rather take a guaranteed $250,000 or flip a coin? And if you're right, you get $5 million. And if you're wrong, you get nothing.
So I would probably take the guaranteed $250K because I would immediately, well, first I'd probably just pay off my last bit of student loans with it. But on top of that, you could literally just put the rest away in like a high yield savings account and just let it correct interest for like the rest of your life. And you be in pretty, decent shape as far as, just having a little nest egg, down the road. Like that could be a house payment down the road or like whatever, right? So that's just on its face to be pretty appealing. Yeah, flip a coin, $5 billion. I mean, now you're set for life. But if I missed if I missed like coin flip, I would be mad at myself for the rest of my life. Like I could have just took the $250K and just like put it in like a high yield savings account and just let it grow, So I would just take the $250K just because it's safe. And I would really hate myself if that was like heads instead of tails. And I'm just like, man, like
I knew Wes would have some numbers here. So he says at $5 million expected value is much higher on the coin flip, but he would still lean to the risk preference. I just know me and how I could live my life. It would also depend if I still had to flip the coin. Because if I had to, so if I take the 250 and you're still going to make me flip the coin, I would struggle with that. Because if I flipped the coin and it landed where I was going to get the $5 million, that would be tough. But I know $5 million's a lot. I understand how much more that is. Yeah. So YouTube user says you still have to flip the coin and know the results. Man, I would struggle with that.
Yeah, so I just did some like a quick calculator here. So if you put $250K in a high yield savings account and contribute nothing to it, it compounds monthly. Interest rate 4.5, which is pretty standard now. In 20 years, your balance is a little bit over $600K. So, again, like you really have to leave it in there for it to be worth something, but you also more than double your money in 20 years, which is pretty nice. So
I just know what 250K would do to my. I don't care about being rich. I care about not stressing about money. Does that make sense?
Yes, exactly.
That's how I live my life. I don't want to stress about money. Yeah. 250K would essentially eliminate stress in my life money-wise for quite a while. Like that would, we're pretty smart with our money. We've done good things. We've already invested. Like we have retirement and all of that. We would pay off we would have zero debt. If we could get that's more than our house is worth out here because, housing prices are obviously different here than like a big city. I just coming away with nothing would suck so bad.
Yeah.
And I understand everybody who would go the other way.
Yeah. So after 30 years, you pretty much crack $1 million. And that's assuming you're not making any contributions at all, right? Like if you're let's say you contribute, let's say it's 20 years and you contribute like $200 a month on top of that, right? Like you're still getting like $700K, like pretty much after 20 years. So yeah, I think by far I would absolutely do. Like we're on here like talking like investments. Like I would absolutely like take that 250.
But here, Wes says stats don't matter if you aren't willing to lose. So that's what. So Josiah Schultz says Simon. So Josiah was one of my students last year. I guess it's okay to use his name because he's on here with his name. He's obviously a Warriors fan, huge Steph Curry fan. So shout out Josiah. YouTube user says 5 million means I never have to work again. 250K doesn't. So this is important because if you are in that realm of life, I understand it.
That's true
I'm fine being a teacher for the next 30 years. I don't dread going to work every day. I enjoy going to work every day, doing the podcast, all of that. So I would be okay with that. But that's just me. I would understand somebody who's like, hey, I really don't want to have to work anymore. Maybe you enjoy your job. You just don't want to have to do it any. My wife, I bet, would take the $5 million. Like, she likes her job, but she talks to me all the time about being stay-at-home mom. And so she would be like, no, let's go for the $5 million. So I understand.
Yeah.
That's a fun question.
Yeah. And I get that too. Like, if I hated my job, I'd definitely be like, I'm taking the coin flip, But I'm looking at it like, okay, I'm 30. By the time I'm 50, like, I could pretty much buy whatever house I want. Like, that's a pretty good
age
place
is
to be
another interesting factor, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm almost 40 already. So, like, how much money do I need to get through the rest? Now, there is like generational wealth and passing it on to your family. Before we get out of here, 14 Grit says, I went to Michigan Tech, 17 feet of snow per year on average. Let's go.
A lot. Yeah. But
that's a lot.
Like, my brother, it's a beautiful city, by the way. Like, just absolute great vibes. Like, it's beautiful. Like, I would spend like a whole summer up there and just kick it. But yeah, he sent me a photo and I'm like, man, like, he's driving like a Honda Civic. Like, are you good? Like, are you handling the ice? Like, he managed it for 2 years. So, hey.
All right. Before we get out of here, just a reminder, we won't be back next week. We'll be back the week after. But if you listened and you liked, subscribe, hit that like button, rate, review, all of that stuff. We will be back with Piston stuff after the break, whether it's the cool idea we got with the all-time teams and Omari's dad, or it's, present day lineups or whatever. It'll be Pistons talk. We wanted to do something different. I think it turned out okay. It was a lot of fun. Also, I want to shout out real quick. Sam and I are doing a top 24, under 24 in 2024 little project over there. So if you go to the Game Theory Podcast YouTube, click on videos, you can watch where we had Cade Cunningham on that list and the 10-minute discussion around him. So I thought that would be something of interest to Pistons fans over there on the Game Theory YouTube. Otherwise, come back with us in a couple weeks. Listen to Wes and Blake Silverman on the Pin Down over on the DBB YouTube. And that's all I got. Omari, take it away, my guy.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I enjoyed this episode. I like whenever we could just sit back and essentially just talk about nothing. Like, I enjoyed doing that. So, and we actually talked some pretty good Pistons topics too, which I was surprised by, because there's been no Pistons news in like 3 weeks. Like, I was like,
oh, real quick. Did I miss the Coney dog discussion? Because
we didn't do it.
What is
loose burger? A loose burger.
That?
So that's just a loose burger is just more so like imagine a hamburger, but you cut it up like a sloppy Joe, but then you kind of season it like a hot dog instead of putting the sloppy Joe sauce on it. So that's like a loose hamburger. So if you go to like, I don't know if Lafayette downtown does some loose hamburgers, but I'm pretty sure you could get one at American. And those are like the two like most famous Coney's. And like I think American, you could do like, you might even be able to get like shawarma there. Honestly, their menu's pretty big, but yeah. So that question came up because like, I think last week I mentioned that like,
you
I'm not
didn't
a big
get
Coney dog
near
fan.
the hate for your Coney dog take as I thought you would.
Because people
also
respect, because I
you
like
also
at this point,
lied about it on Twitter.
Like, I feel like at this point, my food opinions hold weight. So if I say it, people are just like, you know what? There's probably something to that, But I'm not a big hot dog fan, like guy. Like if I'm at a park and it's just like a cookout, like absolutely, give me a hot dog. Like I love it. But I'm never going to like, if I'm buying lunch or dinner, I'm never going to go buy a hot dog. Like I've never one day have I been like, I could really go for a Cody dog right now. Like I'm about to go downtown to get a couple Cody's. Like that's never, I don't know if that's ever happened in my life. It'd have to be like I'm already downtown and like I'm with people who want to go to get the Coney. In which case I would do it. That's more of a philosophical how I value hot dogs.
That sounds awfully picky to me. I don't know. That's just me though.
It's particular. All right. Hey, we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Taking our first week off in 139 episodes. So everybody enjoy your Labor Day. Hopefully we'll have to pitch this up to discuss when we come back. And beyond that, big thanks to our audio producer, Robin Chan, our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery Nichols, and big thanks to Wes, as always, who said Chicago dog or bust. And we'll see you all in 2 weeks.